Senator Obama was one of the first out of the gate calling for the first stimulus and has said we do need a second stimulus. So why don't we start with that? Particularly as you look at the price of energy, it's up 40-some% in the last just couple of months. There's a massive dislocation it's happening at a very rapid rate. Senator Obama's view is let's give energy-based rebates to people, to help them cover costs of energy, but the cost of a bunch of other stuff is shooting through the roof at the same time. Contrasting that with the approach that Senator McCain has put forward of let's waive the gas tax for the summer, I think it's clear the economics say you ought to put your lot with further stimulus rather than let's call them more gimmicky things to just try to address the price of energy. Taking a step back and you say the state of the economy, we've had a significant slowdown. There's no question about that. I think on one hand, the GDP numbers have been surprisingly good, though being not very good overall. I think there was the view among a lot of economists that I know that it would have been negative in the first quarter, and it wasn't. We've kind of bumped along, not very good, but not horrible. Right. The job market has been pretty bad. Most expectations, and I have no reason to doubt them, are that it will continue to get worse because that's not the job performance is not a leading indicator of the business cycle. It tends to keep going. So we've lost jobs for 6 straight months, and that shows every sign of continuing. And there is a hopefully small probability, it's not the most likely outcome, but there is some chance that it deteriorates really substantially, and a lot of that has to do with what happens in the housing market and by consequence what happens in the financial markets, where there's still a lot of unrealized loss and nobody really knows what is left out there, or are we past the worst part?
So we're not out of the woods by any
means? I don't think we're out of the woods, and we might be just getting into the woods, unfortunately.
Al, what's your reading on this?
Well, there's no question there's been a slowdown in the economy. These things unfortunately happen. We don't have economic growth that goes on forever. We're a long ways from ever figuring that out. The good news is, as Austan pointed out, we're not in a recession. We grew at 1% in the first quarter. We'll grow at 1 to 2% in the second quarter. The stimulus package is working itself through the economy. I think it's certainly premature to be talking about a second stimulus package. I think it's not premature, though, to talk about the fundamentals of the economy and what's most important to ensuring the long-term economy is strong. And what Senator Obama is proposing would be devastating to the economy. What he wants to do, and I bet you 99% of y'all are not aware of this, he wants to raise taxes on people who earn more than $250,000 by 17.4%. 17.4%.
That's not actually his policy, but.
Secondly, he wants to increase. He wants to double the capital gains tax rate. He wants to eliminate make the dividends tax rate the same as the regular income tax rate. He wants to restrict trade. He wants to reverse the liberalization of trade that's been occurring since 1945, the result of which most economists would agree, and I'm sure, well, I'll let Austan speak for himself, but most economists would agree it's had a very positive impact on the bulk of Americans. The average income of the average family in America is $9,000 greater today than it would have been had we not liberalized trade policies. He wants to reverse that. So what's most frightening is if Senator Obama is elected, the slowdown will turn into a very negative economy because of significantly increased taxes and because of reversing the liberalization of trade and restricting trade. By the way, companies that are export market, that are export companies, they pay 15% more on average than other companies. And the real growth area of the economy today is exports. Last year we grew at 2.2%. Almost 1% of that growth came from exports. And the last thing in the world we want to do is reverse what we've done on trade.
Okay, Austan, I imagine you want to come back.
Well,
on
Clive,
the tax.
I thought you had asked Al how the economy was doing, but I see that actually it was simply the opening barrage. Let us
I'm worried about
return
what
to
the
two or
economy is going to
three
do
things.
tomorrow.
Let us discuss 2 or 3 issues. Number 1, you heard the sleight of hand at the start. These things just happen. He said, yes, we've had a slowdown. Unfortunately, these things just happen, and we have to work our way through it. This didn't just happen. This wasn't a random business cycle event that just landed on us. The economy slowed down. This was the very culmination of exactly the failed philosophy that we've pursued for the last 8 years. Because there has been an 8-year squeeze on ordinary Americans. Indisputable. Income stagnant for about 85% of workers in the country. The very top, income's growing rapidly. At the same time, income's flat, job growth measly. You've had the cost of energy, the cost of health care, the cost of food, the cost of college education, all rising. Squeezed ordinary Americans to the point that they have literally zero savings. The personal savings rate went below 0 in 2 quarters, meaning if you added up all the savings of the United States, it was less than nothing. In a situation like that, they turn to their houses and borrow money. They've now turned to their credit cards, and the stage is set for anything to go wrong, and it will lead to a dramatic deterioration in consumer confidence, in consumer debt, consumer spending falls. That gets you into recession. That is exactly what happened. This recession is not caused because high-income people's incomes have not grown fast enough. The trickle-down theory didn't work in this case. That wasn't what happened. And so, if you then say, we've gotten to a situation where ordinary Americans aren't able to spend, they don't have the money, and that led to our slowdown, why turn back, as John McCain would do, to the same exact failed philosophy that got us to where we are today? That was exactly where we got. Now, the second point, you could put in the single largest line in Barack Obama's budget is tax relief for ordinary Americans. It's the single biggest thing in his domestic agenda. It is not about raising tax. It is absolutely not true that he wants to add. What did you said? Why limit it at 17.4? He wants to raise, according to Al, 99%
Does
tax
he want
rates.
to take
He does not.
Does he want to take the ceiling off Social Security taxes?
No, he has never proposed the full uncapping of Social Security at 12.4%. He has looked in the policy of reforming Social Security, which is a 25-year process. He has said, before you ask, as John McCain would, for privatizing Social Security or for asking the retirees to raise retirement age and cut their benefits, let us think about the regressivity of the payroll tax, where an oil CEO who makes $102 million doesn't pay 1 cent more in payroll tax than a person making $102,000. Now there, as you know, are many proposals of how to do that in rates of 2%, 3%, 5%, looking just at the employer side. You could follow the international models like in Ireland and others where the uncapping are at very low rates. It is not, has never been, and will not be Senator Obama's policy to raise the top marginal tax rate by 9,000% or whatever was the allegation that Mr. Hubbard